Hello and welcome to Healthcare IT Today. I'm Colin Hung here in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm about to sit down with Sandy Ono, who's the EVP and Chief Marketing Officer at OpenText, a company that's well known in the document and content management space, but increasingly they're doing a business in healthcare. So I wanted to sit down with Sandy to find out what kind of solutions they're offering to healthcare clients and what their healthcare clients are asking from OpenText. I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. Sandy, welcome to the program.
Colin, thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited because OpenText, such a Canadian success story, but not a name that we hear a lot about yet in healthcare. So maybe before we dive into the main part of our discussion, can you give our audience a quick overview of OpenText?
Absolutely. Well, Colin, thanks so much for having me. I'm Sandy Ono. For those who don't know me, I'm the CMO here at OpenText. OpenText is a global software information management company. We play in more than 8 categories or 20 categories if you count on a good day. And it ranges from everything from content management to business networks to cybersecurity to DevOps to IT service management. So quite a breadth of information management, and we help our customers manage their large data sets into what they need to be doing daily at work.
And specifically in healthcare, what are some of the solutions that OpenText is offering in the healthcare space?
Yeah, well, OpenText does a lot in the healthcare space. I would say maybe there's 3 areas that's probably most interesting. One is our tried and true content management. And what we do in content management is really help anybody, providers, solution providers, insurance companies, be able to manage their records at the compliance and the standards of the healthcare industry. Second, we help the healthcare providers deliver experiences. So whether that's communications out to the patients, whether that's telemedicine, whether that's networks and platforms that need to be authenticated, that's what we do in experiences. And lastly is kind of this notion of the connected tissue around the business network. So how do we help healthcare providers track and trace the equipment that they have, be able to authenticate throughout their supply chains, and be able to manage their healthcare supply chain with more fidelity?
That last bit is pretty interesting. I mean, you were talking before we got on camera about the IoT work that you're doing.
Yes.
That's kind of where that stems from. Is that right?
It is. A couple of months ago, we just launched our Aviator IoT solution. And I'll just give you a snippet of what that is about. So imagine in healthcare, what is kind of the most expensive thing in your hospital? Is it an X-ray machine? Is it an insulin vial? Can be many things, right? So how do you actually get visibility to be able to say from the manufacturer, be able to track and trace it onto where you need it to be, authenticate it, that it came from the manufacturer, be able to trace wherever that X-ray machine needs to be in the hospital floor, drive predictive maintenance around it, and that whole life cycle around your most valued assets in healthcare, and a whole set of software solutions to be able to help you with that.
And so this IoT, I mean, the one piece that really kind of triggered my mind is the authentication bit. That's not something we hear about when we talk about tracking and tracing equipment inside the hospital. Can you tell me more about that authentication bit?
Yeah, well, it's very simple. Today, authentication can happen with a QR code, right? So we can print out QR codes on our printer. You stick it on whatever is the device that you need to authenticate. It ships it to wherever it needs to be. Somebody scans the QR code, logs in the number they see on the device, and it says, yes, verified, it came from this manufacturer. So think about that in the pharmaceutical industry. Verifiable, authenticated, that it's actually from where you intended to come from, then it hasn't been tampered with. That's huge in kind of the trust that we have in the full supply chain in healthcare.
Ah, I see. So it's really more for the trust to make sure that that piece of equipment is the one that you meant it to be.
Yeah.
And it's from the manufacturer you want it to be.
Absolutely. So many use cases you can think of in the way that we administer healthcare today.
I'm assuming also it could be very helpful for the actual use of that device, because knowing which model it is and all that can really help the person at the front line, the nurse or the practitioner, to know, oh, it's this model, this is the way the alarm is set up versus this other model where the alarm might be slightly different.
Right. So, imagine now that you got it onto your hospital floor, it's the pharmaceuticals that go in the equipment or the X-ray machine that's in room AB. Now what do you do, right? How do you, as the administrator, say, okay, well, when does that thing need to be serviced? Or when is that insulin expired? How do you kind of collect all that data, be able to see it, and use it in your daily workflow? So all these things now, that a little QR code, it enables you to be able to do that.
And yeah, I mean, you're talking about just sort of rebuilding or building that trust in the system, right? To make sure that everything is going to go okay, reducing errors, all those kinds of things, because that we don't want to have happen to patients. That's phenomenal. What are some of the other things that you're doing in healthcare? I mean, in terms of, are there examples you can give us in terms of some of the clients that you've worked with or anything like
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. There's two clients that we've worked with that I thought would be pretty germane. And since we're in Canada today at the Collision Conference, maybe we can talk about them.
Absolutely.
One is the Ontario Telemedicine Network, the OTN. And we help them actually onboard 170 providers onto their telemedicine platform. And think about what we've gone through in the last couple of years, right? The importance of being able to service that remote patient who doesn't have to drive 3 hours into the specialist clinic to be able to get their diagnosis from their doctor. So that ability to be able to onboard those providers onto their platform, authenticate them, servicing them with all the standards of healthcare is what we help the Ontario Telemedicine Network do. The other one is quite interesting is the Pharma Sciences. They are a pharmaceutical company here in Canada, and they administer over 45 million prescriptions a year. 45 million. Wow. And they needed something pretty simple, which is just one central place for all their SOPs, all their standard operating procedures. Where's that repository? How is it maintained? How is it governed? It sounds like such a simple use case, but for a very large pharmaceutical company, very critical to their day-to-day work.
So as you look across the industry from a technology perspective, is there any technology in healthcare that's got you excited?
Plenty of technology that's gotten me excited. We talk a lot about this notion of total experience, and it's actually where the employee experience meets the patient experience in healthcare. And that actually leads to operational experience. And what that really means is how are we helping with technologies advance the way that the clinical team works, right? The clinical team can be the doctor, the nurse, the person at the administration level. And how is technology actually helping that team? So when we think about it, the trends that really excite me are three things. One is this ability to really drive much more automation in administrative tasks. I'm sure you guys have many podcasts on this topic, right? Administrative tasks and keying in the report after the doctor's visit. The doctor's actually not engaging with the patients because they're so busy keying in the reports. The mental wellness of the healthcare providers. So the more automation we can drive, voice to text, text to voice, everything around that, right? And how that's integrated with these large systems like Cerners and Epic, that automation is key. Second, I think the whole world of generative AI is very interesting.
Okay.
And it's interesting twofold for healthcare. One is, it's really not the large language models, but maybe the innovation that's going to come from small language models.
Okay.
Because there's probably a good amount of healthy debate around hallucinations and all of that, right? But when you have a small language model and it's just medical knowledge, how do you advance the patients and doctors to be able to drive that level of knowledge faster? So I think the world will evolve to more small language models and what it can offer healthcare. And the last application I find really interesting is cybersecurity, right? We can't step two steps into healthcare without talking about data protection, data security, and can AI help to close the gaps? Help us trust that underlying data just a little bit more in order to advance the way we live and work.
I like your small language model idea because we've been hearing about more and more hospital systems in the US thinking about and adopting their own models based on their own data. Now, they're quite large, so it's still millions of lives, millions of patients, but using that so that you can reduce the number of hallucinations versus, let's say, a larger model that's based on everything on the internet.
Exactly. So imagine if you're running the same type of concept, which is learn, generate, help people research, do that faster, but it's just protected data. It's not ChatGPT. It's not the full internet, right? We're helping customers do a lot of those use cases now with AI, which is your protected private data set, right? Your four walls, you're doing it within here. And how do you cost effectively implement AI so it's really relevant for your knowledge workers?
Amazing. Sandy, you've shared a lot of great information with us today. Where can people go to learn more about OpenText?
OpenText.com. Just visit us there, all of our solutions there. And again, we're around the various industry conferences, and we look forward to engaging everybody out there.
Thank you so much for being on our program today, Sandy.
Thank you, Donald, for having me.
Hey, I want to thank Sandy for coming on camera with me and giving me the insight onto what OpenText is doing in healthcare. I was particularly interested not only in their content management solutions, of course, that they're bringing into the healthcare arena, but also their cybersecurity work and their data privacy work. Looking forward to hearing more about OpenText in the months to come. And hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I enjoyed being part of it, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to healthcareittoday.com where you can find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung here in Toronto, Ontario. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next video.